description at this time, or
yes,
have it
please.
written on the papers I gave to you?
Why don't you just read it?
Emmons County Township 135 North, Range 76 West, Section 26, E2, and W2, representing the Kurtzman Farm Trust and the Dwight and Wanda Kurtzman Farm Trust. Thank you, Commissioners, for hearing us in Emmons County today. Appreciate that. I've lived in Hazelton all of my life, and my family owns fourth generation cropland 4 miles east of Hazelton in Emmons County. The proposed pipeline would cut our property in half diagonally and would be about 1,800 feet from the yard. This pipeline would ruin development of our land for all future generations. Here's the property, and this is the proposed pipeline, cutting it right in half. We were sent the first easement contract in November of 2021. The amount of compensation was insulting, as was the language of the contract. We were sent 6 more identical contracts, then an 8th. On July 11th, 2022, we received our first threat letter from Summit's right-of-way manager. On July 29th, 2022, Summit's lawyers informed us that they were to initiate legal action and advised us to retain an attorney. We did hire an attorney. If we were to take the largest easement offer per year of the 99 easement years and apply it toward the lawyer bill so far, it would take us 27.71 years to pay it off. This would make me 92 years old before that was even paid off. Here's my math. At an early Summit meeting in Hazelton about 2 years ago, I sat and listened to Wade Bason, Summit's EVP, and others pitch their pipeline project. What was said and what was real at that time were not the same. I became disgusted and got up and walked out of the meeting. As I was walking out to the parking lot, 2 of Summit's people were following me. They confronted me and demanded to know who I was and who my land agent was. I told them nothing and got in my car and left, and one of the land agents was one of their people that was at the meeting, and the other was Julie DeMio, the right-of-way manager. Early on in this project, we were aware of how Summit's agents and representatives entered private property without permission. For intimidation, they arrived in out-of-state motorcades with their entourage, including bodyguards who wouldn't speak, and a film crew, and sometimes boring crews. We were on constant watch to see if we would be next, and we waited for the bullies to invade our land, and I prayed that when it happened, I would have enough phone battery to call the sheriff, and when I'm standing out in the field, I could call my lawyer. I kept notes to myself in the back of the phone, so when the time came, I followed my 9 steps so I could protect myself. In several publications, then, we were called the radical landowners, and have also been compared to the DAPL pipeline protesters. But we like pipelines. We like water and fuel and gas and electrical and power and services and all of the things that pipelines bring. This potential pipeline brings only a senseless draining of our resources and provides us with nothing but constant dread. Summit repeatedly states that they cover liability for the pipeline. Our first easement contract states in very small writing, and I'll read it to you. Landowner acknowledges and agrees that it releases and forever discharges company from all damages and claims relating to the pipeline. Did you hear that? Landowner acknowledges and agrees that it releases and forever discharges company from all damages and claims relating to the pipeline. That was the easement contract they sent us and expected us to sign. Then the actual wording in our latest easement contract states, companies shall pay indemnify and hold landowner harmless for any loss, damage, claim, or action resulting from company's use of the easement from company's use of the easement. Then we received the 5-page letter from Jimmy Powell, the form letter. Every single page is vague and lawyered up and not truthful. So what he talks about in his insurance comments, Summit Carbon Solutions is responsible for any and all liability associated with the pipeline construction and operation. That's what it says, associated with pipeline construction and operation. So what I'm reading is that there is no liability coverage for farm equipment accidents, weather-related catastrophes, landslides, earthquakes, acts of God, human error, personal injury, loss of livestock, or loss of life. There's no protection for the landowner if something happened now or 99 years from now when someone is long gone, has sold out, gone bankrupt, or has abandoned the project when the money dried up. The insurance policy for our land has a pollution exclusion, and we will not commit, and they will not commit to cover anything related to a CO2 pipeline. We have been advised that even if we never sign an easement and Summit takes our land by eminent domain, we could still be liable for incidents and lawsuits arising from the pipeline on our land for the next 99 years. This is a letter from the insurance company. In that same 5-page letter from Summit, Mr. Powell, he states that CO2 will permanently and safely be stored underground. Humans cannot predict the future. This science experiment has never been done before. He goes on to state that there are many existing pipelines in Bismarck area, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, there are many pipelines, but none of them are near the size and pressure and danger of this pipe, and it cannot be compared to anything that is known. It's like comparing a slight breeze to a tornado. Both move air, but one is helpful and the other one is a catastrophe. This pipe is only 4 feet deep. We bury people deeper than that. Mr. Powell declares in his letter also, there have been 0 fatalities and only a single injury associated with CO2 pipelines in the last 25 years. So is he saying that all 45 of the people who were injured and hospitalized in Mississippi during that pipeline rupture conspired or lied about the whole thing? How can he state that in a letter? This pipeline route is 1.8 miles from Hazleton. Our fearless local volunteer firefighters and EMTs would be powerless to deal with a CO2 disaster. This PSC should be very concerned that is planned to be built only 1.8 miles from our population of 300 plus 97 students and staff at our school. So here's their Emmons County map. Distorted, here's their distorted Emmons County map. Linton's in the middle. Right up here, if you use a lens, you can see teeny weeny tiny writing of Hazleton right there. And here's the pipeline, 1.8 miles from Hazleton. Also in his letter, Mr. Powell states that pipelines have not materially impacted property values. There's no current data to reflect any information on a 24-inch toxic pipe because there's no data. There hasn't been one before. No person with a choice would choose a property with this pipeline over one without. Anyone who is buying a property would certainly pay less for a piece of land with this type of risk involved. If this thing gets built and when the first accident happens and news of it gets out, our properties could become worthless. It is not possible for a project of this magnitude to be built without mistakes. A simple house is not built without mistakes. A 5-state 2,000-mile pipeline is an accident waiting to happen. Mr. Powell in his letter goes on to describe their high regard for cultural resources. So over a year ago, I testified at the first Emmons County PSC hearing, if you remember. I was the one that had those big rocks in my purse and I set them up here. Those were our cultural resources from our land. And I brought some of the items with and showed them and set them here. Summit was sitting right over here. They saw it all. After that hearing and to this day, there has been zero follow-up, no questions asked, no letters or calls or any interest whatsoever from anyone about the artifacts from the land. Summit has no regard for our cultural resources. Summit as a whole is a master manipulator with words and promises that are not kept. I do not believe anything they say. As children, we learn that people who keep telling us lies are known as liars. I do not trust them with my life, and I do not trust them with the lives of my children or my grandchildren. We cannot allow this dishonest and misleading organization to build a life-threatening monstrosity. We submitted a request for a reroute nearly a year ago, and it was completely ignored. Summit states that it was committed to pursuing good faith negotiations with landowners in an attempt to reach agreements. Wade Basons repeatedly states at public meetings that if you don't want it on your land, we can move it. Governor Burgum states, if you don't want it, let the neighbor get the big check. Well, I have informed Governor Burgum that we have not received an offer of the big check. We have again and again requested a reroute, actually 10 times. 1 time by our lawyer, 3 by email, and 6 by certified mail with return receipt. We did not receive a single phone call, letter, or any communication with Summit regarding a reroute, not even an acknowledgement of the requests. I question their claim of moving it 5,000 times. What happened to their testifying under oath that the landowner is in charge, and Mr. Bason's claim of we'll treat you right? So then just 13 days ago, our lawyer received a letter from Summit's attorney, Mr. Bender, stating that Summit tried to communicate with us approximately 11 times about this reroute, 11 times, and that they would not, and that we wouldn't engage with Summit's representatives. They have not contacted us in any way by phone, mail, agent, or representative, not even 1 time. If they're counting the 8 easements that they sent us by FedEx 2 years ago and the 3 threat letters we received from their attorneys, then yeah, that's 11 times. The letters to our lawyer also requested written permission from us to survey the property in order to determine whether the proposed reroutes are feasible. They made the whole route plan without surveys. They don't need a survey again to move it off my property. Here's a letter from the attorney. At the Friends of Ag and Energy meeting on April 18th, 2024 at PSC, Speaker Scott Hennon stated at 46 minutes into the meeting, quote, 90% of landowners have said yes and have gotten upfront payments. This is directly from the PSC, who gets reports from the pipeline company. It's in the filing, unquote. On April 22nd, 3 days later, at the Burleigh County Commission, the Burleigh PSC hearing in Mandan, Mr. Powell was questioned about this 90%. He confessed that it was not 90%. And from what I have observed and known, I believe Summit has been doctoring up the sign-up data from day one. At that same meeting, Scott Hennon states that Summit Carbon Solution fired 50 or more agents or representatives because of the way the early easements were obtained with threats. And I would surmise that the early agents were advised by upper management. The chief operating officer and the executive vice president were not fired, and the right-of-way manager was not fired. At the recent Burleigh PSC hearing, State Representative Mike Brandenburg made light of the seriousness of the easements by referring to the first easy signups as Summit's cherry picking. If Summit was truly concerned about the way the first easements were acquired, They should go back to the landowners who signed under duress and release them from their contract. Honestly, what percent of these easements were volunteer? I believe that if the landowners knew the dangers and risks involved, this number should be zero. Another petty and unprofessional way that Summit uses deception is by distorting the county and state maps. They have done this from the beginning and they're still doing it. And I have no doubt that this is done for the benefit of Summit. And maybe so the route looks further away from Bismarck and it looks further away from Hazleton and other cities. And it's to keep us uninformed of where the route actually is. So this is an early Summit map of North Dakota. Here's a Burleigh County, all distorted Burleigh County. Here's an Emmons County, look at this. Emmons County, here's Linton, here's the pipeline. They took Hazleton right off the map. It's not even on there. Right there is Hazleton, right by the pipeline. This is their map. So here's their Emmons County map. This is the official Emmons County map. Here's their North Dakota map. And here's the North Dakota tourism map.
Ms. Stromer, I'll ask
Yes.
that you please wrap up your comments.
Okay. Okay. Okay, I will wrap it up. On the day of the initial route permit denial, these are the reasons for your denial, that you issued this news release. And the issues that you were concerned about because you denied their permit was concerns about eminent domain, safety, sequestration, setbacks, irreparable harm, ability to obtain liability insurance, adverse effects on the value of the property. And the commission felt that the Summit has not taken steps to address outstanding legitimate impacts and concerns expressed by landowners or demonstrated why the reroute was not feasible. So those are the reasons that of your denial a year ago. None of those things have changed. None of those things have changed. Considering that and using common sense, it's not possible to approve this route permit. Since your denial, we have seen only more of the same bad practices, poor conduct, and unorganized behavior from Summit. For nearly 3 years, we have witnessed their hurried mismanagement, and we can assume that building of this pipeline would be the same. Please, commissioners, we sincerely implore you again to deny the Summit route permit.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Glut?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Pelham?
I don't have any questions for you. Thank you.
Mr. Broughton?
No, Your Honor. I would just note real quick, though, that I got an email from Mr. Jordy. I don't know if he's able to connect, but this is one of his witnesses.
Do we have audio? Mr. Jordy, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Good.
Do you have any
Okay,
questions?
yeah, before this started, I was trying to get attention, but let's see. Ms. Steamer, is Mitch Kurtzman, is he going to testify later today after the public comment period?
Yes, he is.
Okay, very good. Then just limited for you, the cultural resources pictures, you held up 2 photographs of cultural resources. Have you submitted those to the PSC or sent them in or provided them?
At the first Emmons County PSC hearing, Mr. Liable had my statements. There were not photographs in there. However, all my statements were in there in words that talked about the cultural resources.
Okay, I guess I would just ask if you would be willing to pull those 2 photos out,
Yeah.
just those 2
Absolutely.
photos.
It's 3
And-
photos.
Or 3 photos.
Yes.
Yep, and then if you could just request that, assuming you want them part of the record, request that they be made part of the record, and then you can give them to the PSC, okay?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay, so you're requesting those 3 photographs be made part of the record here?
You're asking me that,
Yes.
Jordy? Yes.
Okay, all right, very good. So, then I guess I would move the admission of those three, or to have those three photographs uploaded to the docket, and if you can just provide them to the PSC, ma'am. And with that, I don't have anything further. Thank you.
Mr. Jordy, all the documents that have been coming in as part of the public testimony, I've been including them as one exhibit. So I would probably just include them with that documentation. Is that acceptable to you?
Yeah, just those three photos are the only things that I'm interested in. So that would be fine.
You can give them to me. And I'll include them with your written comments. That's fine. I'll include it with this, so. All right, Commissioner Chrisman, any questions?
I do, and this first part, I probably asked you this a year ago, but rather than me researching my records, maybe you could just explain it again. So you have land in section 26. I'm looking at that map, and I'm looking at an aerial map. You have the east half of section 26. Do I understand that correctly? These two quarters?
Yes, these two quarters. Are you looking at map 26?
Yes.
Okay, yep, it shows on there,
The east half of that whole section? Or do you own two?
it's
40s?
2 quarters.
Okay, and
Yes,
I don't see a residence there. Is your residence on a different section
the farm and the yard is right here.
over in section 25?
It's in 26. Right there is the farm, the yard.
Oh, okay, I see it now.
There's the yard. It's 1,800 feet from the yard.
Okay. So then I got that, and you showed a lot of maps and mentions of Hazelton.
Hmm.
In my notes, as I looked at these, and mine is not a map of like the whole county, it's piece by piece as the pipeline goes across the landscape. I made a note on here. I just want to see if I figured this out right when I was combing through this when we first received this whole book of maps. Where this pipeline angles across yours and then comes out on the west side of section 26. I put a note there that looked like it was that Hazelton was about 3 or 4 miles
Yes.
farther west.
Correct.
So that would be the close point. So it's about either 3 or 4 roughly miles.
From Hazelton.
Okay.
Yes.
I wasn't sure if your testimony was that this is real close to Hazelton.
The pipeline itself is 1.8 miles from Hazelton. My property is nearly 4 miles from Hazelton.
Thank you for that. No other questions.
Commissioner Haugenhofer?
Thank you. I did not bring all my books with me. So I'm gonna go on page 6. And the third paragraph, as part of some of the information we have received has been correspondence between the landowner and Summit Carbon. And I'm just wondering, has that letter been submitted to the PSC for any of our documents?
Which letter?
The correspondence between you and your attorney to Summit on the reroute that you suggest.
Oh, yes.
And then this letter, just 13 days ago, you received correspondence from
Yes.
Summit's attorney. Has that been submitted to us? We have received numerous documentation.
Well, less than 48 hours ago, they did another talk about reroute, which means nothing to me because it's just a red line on a piece of paper, still on my property, changes nothing. 48 hours ago, this happened. And yes, my attorney is aware of that.
And your attorney is Mr. Jordy?
Yes.
Okay. So would you say you're right now in negotiations with Summit on a reroute?
No. Well, there has been no contact with a representative or an agent. Summit just sent my lawyer a piece of paper. I have it right here.
Just for clarification, is Mr. Jordy still on? Because the screen is black. Okay, okay. Okay, thanks.
So this is what my lawyer received less than 48 hours ago. Them showing they're trying to consider a reroute pending this and that and the other. And all they did was move it instead of cutting my property across this way, they're cutting it across this way on the southern part. It changes nothing for us.
It's hard to see what you're doing.
Yeah.
So instead of diagonally, they're cutting
Straight across.
Straight across.
Bottom.
What's that land used for?
Small grains, cropland.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Dawson, any questions?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Stromer. Who would like to go next? Come on up, whoever wants to go next. Good morning. I'll have you start by stating your full name and spelling your last name for the record.
I'm Carrie Curran. It's C-U-R-R-A-N.
And Ms. Kern, were you in the room earlier when I went through the penalties for perjury?
Yes,
And do you understand what perjury is?
yes,
Being advised of the potential penalties for perjury, do you promise to tell the truth in this case today?
yes.
All right, thank you. You might want to pull the mic a little closer so we can hear you.
Your Honor, I missed her first name.
Carrie.
Okay. So I'm Carrie Curran. I will be a landowner of a life estate of the south half of the southwest quarter, section 11, township 130, range 58, and the northwest corner of the northwest quarter of section 14, township 130, range 58, in Jackson Township, Sargent County. The Summit Carbet pipeline is proposed to run through it. I believe we shouldn't be messing with it. We need to protect our farmers and their land from Summit and any other company that comes and tries to take over even 1 inch of that land for their own benefit. I am also very concerned specifically for my mom's welfare. She has recently been widowed and is now having to fight a big company for land that is already in her possession. Letting them take it will open up her land for grabs by many other companies, claiming it's for the common good. How can North Dakota let this happen? This is her livelihood we are talking about. She has scrimped and scraped all her life, and now Summit Carbon Solutions wants to come and take what little she does have. She has been worried for 2 years now, fighting to keep what is rightfully hers, questioning how is she going to pay a lawyer to fight for what is already hers? How will she escape if there is a leak? Will she get renters in the hills where the cows will be next to this dangerous pipeline, threatening their herd? Will Summit block the cows from the stock pond while they are constructing the pipeline? What about her new fence that was just built and finally paid for? Who will man the gates for the cows while all these people are milling around out there? Certainly she won't be able to manage renting the land while this is constructed. How will she deal with losing rent money and pay for her living expenses? What will they do with all the rocks they dig up? She has had to limit her travel to visit family in order to pay a lawyer to fight for her future. This is rugged terrain and can't even be traversed by a tractor during certain times of the year. The cows have to be moved down by the house during these times. You would need a helicopter to get out there if there was a leak. There is no road, and there will be a leak. The frost lines are always shifting. This is a sensitive environment with native prairie grass and flowers, teepee rings, and old Native American burial sites. Huge rocks pushed to the surface. If this dangerous pipeline is allowed to go through here and run 500 feet from my mother's bedroom window, you will have my mother's and possibly me and my family's blood on your hands, just for a private company's profit. We take all the risk with no reward. How much is your mother's life worth to you? Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, hang on. We gotta go through questions. Mr. Gludd, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Pelham?
No.
Mr. Broughton?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Jordy, any questions?
Yes. Ma'am, what's the name of your mother?
Valera Han.
Okay, and there's a binder in front of you, or at least I hope there's a binder in front of you that should have.
Mr. Jordy, there's no binder.
Okay, so maybe the exhibits didn't get here from the other hearings. Have you talked to your mother about potential reroutes and more appropriate routes given the terrain, the Native American artifacts, the challenges, and the location of residences?
Yes.
Okay. And are you aware if she's submitted recently an exhibit relative to potential reroutes that she's discussed with the township supervisor that would avoid all these issues?
Yes.
Okay. And Your Honor, we had talked about it with Ms. Han, and I may or may not have offered it, but if I didn't, I would offer Exhibit 54, and those are Ms. Han's reroute suggestions in response to Mr. Beauchamp's pre-filed testimony.
Give me the number one more time. Did you say 54?
Yes, 5454.
I feel like you did, but I do not see it on my list, so I will put it on my list for today. That's
Okay.
fine. We'll get it through Mr. Jordy. But is there any objection to 54?
Is this the letter from Mr. Jordy to Mr. Bender?
That's already in evidence. This is a single page of a plat map with reroutes in response to Mr. Beauchamp's. I used it with him yesterday and I thought I offered it. I'm just cleaning up the record here.
Oh, let me look at my other.
Hang on, I'm trying to see if we have I think Roseanne may have uploaded a copy, but let me confirm.
Yeah, I have it as marked as admitted from yesterday. That's correct. I was looking at the Wapaton exhibits, but yeah, it was admitted yesterday.
Okay,
And we
they're very good. All right. Thank you. Then I don't have anything further, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Chrisman, any questions?
Like the previous lady, I think I got some of this information down in Wapaton already, but you said you have the south half of the southwest corridor of section 11
Yes.
and the northwest corridor of, that's where I didn't go.
That's kind of confusing. The northwest quarter of the northwest quarter of section 14, township 130, range 58.
Which section?
Section 14.
And is this where, you don't live out here, right?
I don't know.
But Valera does.
She doesn't live up in the hills, but she lives on another section where the pipeline will be running 500 feet from her window.
Where is that one?
Section 12.
Your Honor, could I maybe come back, let the others ask questions? I want to look up that one too.
Sure.
Make sure I don't have any other questions regarding.
Commissioner Haugenhofer,
Thank you. I have no questions for you.
Mr. Dawson,
No questions, thank you.
all right, we'll just pause for a second and see if Commissioner Chrisman can find.
That's way at the west side of section 12.
Yeah.
And you feel it's, when you say 500 feet, is that the distance that shows on the map? Is it 500 feet's an important number because that's
Yes.
what's in the code?
Yeah.
Are you saying it's less than 500 feet or is it more? And do you have anything more exact? Because if you were saying 1,100 feet, I wouldn't be concerned, but since 500 feet is what's in the code, it's really important.
Yeah, I believe that information has been submitted previous. I'm exactly sure.
We'll dig into it then. Thank you so
Okay.
much for being here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Curran. All right, whoever wants to go next, if you could come forward. Good morning. I'll have you start by stating your full name and spelling your last name for the record.
My full name is Mike Klabo. Last name is spelled K-L-A-B-O.
Mr. Clable, were you in the room this morning when I went through the penalties for perjury?
I was,
And do you understand what perjury is?
yes,
And being advised of the potential penalties for perjury, do you promise to tell the truth in this case today?
I do.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, I guess several concerns, and I wasn't sure where this hearing was going to go today. I actually was doing a little bit of preparation as to the CO2 question. I had a lot of concerns about actually the CO2 implications for the ag and those types of things. The reason that I was looking at that is I was concerned about eminent domain. Eminent domain, to me, is dependent upon the categorization of a necessary utility. So if Carbon Solutions pipeline does not go through, if it did not go through, what would the negative consequences be to people in Emmons County and all the other counties where this pipeline is scheduled to travel through? To me, the eminent domain question should be one of the main questions. We're asking landowners to give up their land. And I think, especially in the last 2 years, I think sometimes we forget the struggles that people that live here on the land have gone through to establish their residences and establish their holdings. These properties, these farms are a legacy. They're a family legacy. My great-grandparents homesteaded in the St. Mike's area. I'm a history major, among other things, and I had a lot of detailed discussions with my grandparents and my great-grandfather. I heard stories about 7 years of no moisture. Grasshoppers so thick that they ruined the meat. If you ate a chicken on a farmstead during the Depression, it was inedible. And the people in this room are the byproduct and the ancestors of the people that have worked so hard over the last 100 years to establish themselves here. I am very upset with how these people have been treated, willy-nilly, disregarded, things twisted around. That is, to me, unconscionable. That is not acceptable. Filing suit against the county rather than going through proper protocols with local government is not acceptable. I currently live on the Missouri River. I can attest to the amount of recreation. I live 1 mile south of Beaver Bay, and I can tell you there are boats constantly in the Beaver Bay area, the Cattail Bay area. The Hazelton boat ramp is absolutely swamped this time of year. Has anybody given any consideration to the fact that this pipeline crosses a river? What are the implications? Do we really know and understand the total implication? If there's a rupture going across or near the river, do we really understand? Has anybody really examined the implications in Mississippi when 45 people were injured? This is serious. And the bottom line is, everybody here that is hearing this information should be working for or be concerned about the people out here. These are the people that determine how things go. We're a representative government, and the people that own the land are the ones that should have the ultimate say. And I think that gets lost in the equation. I have no other comments, but I think we need to really take a serious look at this, look at the environmental issues. Is this really necessary? You know, I've done some research on agronomy. The ideal levels of CO2 in an agronomy setting are between 400 and up to 1200, which enhances the growth of agronomy, various, even marijuana, whatever the case may be. It actually enhances the growth of these crops. And I am just not sold on the fact that CO2 is a villain. CO2 is plant food. End of conversation. We need greenhouse gases to keep the heat in the atmosphere. I am just not sold on this at all. I'm totally am not sold on it. So with that, I'm done.
All right. Mr. Glut, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Pelham?
I don't, thank you.
Mr. Broughton?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Jordy?
No, Your Honor.
Commissioner Chrisman?
I have none, but thank you for being here.
Commissioner Haugen-Hoffert?
No questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Dawson?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Clable. Whoever would like to go next, if you could come forward, please. Good morning. I'll have you start by stating your full name and spelling your last name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Ron Mathern, Mathern.
Mr. Mathern, were you in the room this morning when I went through the penalties for perjury?
Yep.
And do you understand what perjury is?
I do.
Being advised of the potential penalties for perjury, do you promise to tell the truth in this case today?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
I'm just doing a follow-up on, I don't consider this CO2 a villain either. It's keeps heat on the earth and on and on. But besides, you know, that it's not a greenhouse gas, we can't afford it. We cannot pay the interest on our debt. I just was, a guy on the radio last night was talking about our debt is being sold to other countries. They're going to charge more interest. And so I don't understand. It's not necessary to create more debt. And the grids cannot handle it. There are several reasons here to really look at this really hard before we even consider putting in the pipeline. Mine is short and sweet. I just want to add that I agree with him that it's, when I had done some research too, we had levels as high as 2,000, I even read up to 6,000 parts per million at one time, and the Earth survived. Our temperature has come up 1 degree in the last 100 years. We are cooler now than we were 2,000 years ago. So, very basic. I don't even know why the discussion should be talked about, that it's not a villain.
All right. Mr. Glut, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Pelham?
Just briefly, Mr. Madden, thank you for being here. I just want to point out a couple things as far as the jurisdiction of the commission. The commission is here to cite a pipeline that's been proposed.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand that the commission doesn't have any authority or jurisdiction over the federal policies that involve climate change or carbon capture?
Okay.
And as far as the prior witness, and I think you might have referenced, it's the eminent domain. The commission doesn't have any jurisdiction over whether or not condemnation
takes place or not. Do you understand that?
But it's a place for us to make our voice.
I understand, and I appreciate that, and I'm glad you took the time to be here today and testify. I just want you to understand that.
Very good.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Broughton, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Jordy, any questions?
Sir, just a clarifying question. When you said we don't need more debt, the United States doesn't need more debt, is that in referring to the billions of dollars of tax credits associated with these pipelines, or what was the debt you were speaking of?
I was listening, I talked with Michael Bell, and he said the federal government will pay around 20% or something like that. And that's billions of dollars. We keep piling up debt upon debt upon debt. Our biggest expenditure this coming year, the way he was, I heard, is going to be interest on our debt. And so unless, I could see it if we were at 10,000 parts per million. Now we have to do something with this carbon. We need to bite the bullet. But at this point, more unnecessary, and renewable energy constantly needs to have subsidies years after it has started. And that's it. If they want to spend money, reduce the debt. That might not make sense, but yeah.
So, sir, do you believe that approving this, if the PSC were to approve the applications before them, that would have negative impacts upon the welfare of the citizens of North Dakota?
Well, yeah, let's just have more debt. There's just no end to it. And I think it is negative. We need to get the spending under control. And this is just one facet of it. I realize that. But it is a facet.
Thank you, sir. Nothing further.
Commissioner Chrisman?
And I just want to be clear, we welcome testimony from everyone, not just landowners along the route. I just want to make sure that we didn't miss something here. Do you have land along the route?
No, I'm just concerned.
Okay. And then on your concerns specific to the debt, do you have the same concerns about the debt that rises up because of subsidies for ethanol plants and for wind farms as well?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for being here.
Commissioner Haugen-Hoffert?
Ron, I appreciate your testimony. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Dawson?
I may have missed it, but where do you live?
Bismarck.
No further questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mathern. Who would like to go next? I saw somebody stand up over here. Good morning. I'll have you start by stating your full name and spelling your last name for the record.
My name is Lyle Kenner, Kenner.
And Mr. Kenner, were you in the room this morning when I went through the penalties for perjury?
Yes, I was.
And do you understand what perjury is?
Yes.
And being advised of the potential penalties for perjury, do you promise to tell the truth in this case today?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. As I said, my name is Lyle Kenner. I'm a veterinarian here in Linton. See if we can get these things organized. Worked on this quite a while last night. First of all, thank you for holding a new round of hearings again here and including Linton. I was just thinking about your job of sitting here for hours and hours of listening, and I have a hard time staying awake for 20 minutes with a pastor's sermon. So anyway, there's a couple dates that come out in this whole issue. 2019, we have the Green New Deal by AOC, concerns about global warming, climate change, carbon footprint, etc. And then as we go forward a few years, May 2nd of 2022, actually at that time I was semen testing a bunch of bulls in the clinic, and this client says, "Did you hear about the press conference?" I said, "What press conference?" He said, "The 3 billionaires press conference." "Oh, okay, what about it?" Well, he said they're going to move CO2, they're putting in a CO2 pipeline and it's going in the ground in, I think, Oliver and Mercer counties. So who are the three billionaires? Okay, it's Governor Burgum, Senator Hoeven, and a representative for Harold Hamm. Men who have a good reputation in their own right for other reasons. I said, you're putting CO2 in the ground. You're taking it out of wherever. I said to me, in that setting, I speak quite freely. I said, I think this is ludicrous. So why is carbon sequestration ludicrous? You've heard some of that already. CO2 is a key component of the atmosphere. Right now, it's approximately 0.04% or 400 parts per minute, 400 parts per million. Atmosphere also has 78% nitrogen and 20% oxygen, which is so critical for life, especially if you have a heart and a lung, you need oxygen. Okay, so we've had that some reference to it. We need CO2 for photosynthesis. Photosynthesis makes plants grow. Plants are the basis for so much of everything. Photosynthesis needs CO2, water, sunshine. And I would add, it is 100% safe at normal pressure, normal concentration. Atmospheric CO2 is absolutely safe. So, from a common sense point of view, I would say CO2, just let it be. Perhaps more CO2, more plant growth. A couple things in this whole issue. I managed to read through this little book called Hot Talk Coal Science, written by Dr. Fred Singer, who is a renowned cosmic physicist turned expert on about anything to do with climate. So it's a very interesting read. You might get sleepy in reading it though. In his book, he states in 1951, CO2 was about 312 parts per million. In 2019, CO2 was about 412 parts per million. It's an increase of 32%. Other things in this time frame, from 1961 to 2010, approximately 50 years, the world population doubled. Also from 1961 to 2010, food production tripled. Not too many people talk about that. Population doubled, food production tripled. Okay, another thing in this book that's quite interesting, in 1990, I think this was a UN Commission finding, 23.3% of the world population was undernourished, approximately a quarter of the world. In 2015, that number is only 12.9%. So in easy figures, we cut the starvation rate in half, if you want to use those easy terms. The observation is atmospheric CO2 went up, world starvation went down. So what are we concerned about? Are we concerned about global warming today? In Dr. Singer's expertise, he has done a lot with satellite weather systems, and a lot of his work deals with satellite data, which takes out a lot of variables, such as if you're going to take, say, a temperature reading outside of Bismarck. Well, the heat from Bismarck town somewhat skews what the airport's going to report. Satellite imaging does not have that problem. The satellite shows very little annual change since 1998. There was a little rise in temperature. I think someone alluded to that earlier. And since 1998, it's basically flat. So that hence we have less talk about global warming, more talk about climate change. An interesting little tidbit that happened to catch on TV was this Dr. Patrick Moore, co-founder of Greenpeace, very environmental oriented group. He's flatly stated there's no significant global warming. That's his opinion. I'm not a Greenpeace fan, but I'll take his opinion on that. With climate change, there is some, but it seems to me for the better. Just look around. I moved to Emmons County in 2006, and that was actually a drought year. But as I recall then, if we had 100 bushel corn, farmers are growing 100 bushel corn, that was a pretty good thing. Now that number, I would say, is probably moved to 150 bushel. Maybe somebody else will come along and testify later and adjust my numbers. But it seems to me we are seeing a better growth of corn. I'm just that one thing. Is that due to the atmosphere? Is that due to better no-till programs and so on? But we are not going down. We are going up in productivity in the face of a slight increase in CO2. Also, he noted in the satellite imaging, you're seeing greener areas in the northern zones. So we're growing crops, we're growing something further north over time, and that I see nothing wrong with that. Also in his book, he also talks in history of what was called a medieval warming period, when it was very warm, much warmer than now. Also in those hundreds of years, there's also a time called the Little Ice Age. During that Little Ice Age, there was areas of Europe that literally starved to death because they couldn't grow anything. So climate changes, it will change. He also makes the statement in the book, when you get to the final analysis and you take all the politics out of it, what man does probably has very little to do with it. There are many scientific factors in play. You can take things like sunspots. Do we have more sunspots, less sunspots? I don't know. I don't look at the sun very good. But, you know, there's scientific people who do it. And the radiation from the sun can vary. Makes the earth warmer or cooler, depending on which it is. You've also got things like evaporation from the oceans. If there's more evaporations, there's more clouds that cools the earth off, etc. So there's a lot of things you can argue about there. Now let's go back to the CO2, which is the big factor in so-called greenhouse gases. And there's a lot of postulation about how these greenhouse gases are, what they are. Methane is such a terrible thing. Oh, well, it's what all cows burp up. When a cow ruminates, she creates methane. Hasn't heard anything yet that I know of. The question is, do so-called greenhouse gases insulate the earth and hold heat in, making it hotter? That's what we've been told. That's the nice agenda. There's also the other way to look at it. Or do greenhouse gases reflect excessive sun radiation and keep it cooler? Dr. Singer goes into a lot of discussion on that. There's no real conclusion, but we are here today based on the idea that greenhouse gases are terrible things. From this brief discussion, the proposed carbon sequestration via carbon capture, pipeline, transport, and injection into the earth has no real solid scientific basis. It seems to me it is really about moving money from the taxpayers to the financial and political elite. A little while ago, we've seen the list of some of the investors in carbon, in Summit Carbon Solutions. A lot of these are foreign entities. I guess maybe in an offhand way, you would say it's moving money from the serfs to Summit Carbon Solutions. This project is harmful to the economic welfare of the citizens of North Dakota. I guess I should back up. I forgot my order of things here. In the publication here about why we're having this PSC meeting, there's a question: will construction, operations, and maintenance of the facility at the proposed location produce minimal adverse effects on the environment and upon the welfare of the citizens of North Dakota?
Mr. Kenner, can you wrap up your comments, please?
Speaking of the welfare, this CO2 pipeline is incredibly dangerous to our physical health, potentially. I've just extolled the value of CO2 in nature, but a 24-inch pipeline at 2,100 pound PSI is a huge potential danger. Why? It is a gas that can disperse oxygen displace oxygen, continuous intake of oxygen is vital to all creatures. It has specific gravity higher than atmospheric air, thus in high concentration it pushes oxygen up and out. It follows the ground. At levels of 4% and above, it is toxic due to oxygen displacement. One of the problems we have is discussing the plume. I asked a professional engineer about this some, and you, at 8% CO2, if this line breaks, you have an area of 33 miles diameter, height of 8 feet. That's a toxic, huge toxic thing. Imagine a giant round water tank with 8-foot sidewalls that is 33 miles across and is filled with 8% CO2. That's what the math shows. This perfect cylinder is never going to exist. But the volume of that pipeline, 390 million cubic feet of pure toxic CO2 does exist. Going back to the initial objective of minimal adverse effects on the environment and upon the welfare of the citizens of North Dakota, it is quite obvious that what I just described is not good for the welfare of the people of North Dakota. To me, it is potentially as dangerous as a Japanese tsunami, except you can't see it coming, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, perhaps you can't even hear it. But there is a requiem to mark that moment in history. Will that requiem be for one farmer, his family, construction crew, the population of a small town, perhaps Hazleton? Perhaps it is just the kids that are under 4 feet tall playing in a park by the lake out in the country. In closing, I firmly believe we will be better off if this CO2 pipeline is not built. Better for Emmons County, better for North Dakota, as we have published here, better for the United States, and I think even better for our world. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Glut, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Pelham?
No.
Mr. Broughton?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Jordy?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Commissioner Chrisman?
Well, I will just say, Mr. Kenner, although none of it was a revelation to me, I loved how you brought together the perspective that in somewhat the same time frame that planetary CO2 levels have gone up from roughly 300 to 400 parts per million, that the population doubled, food production tripled, and starvation numbers have dropped. That's, if that's not trademarked, I'm going to probably use that from time to time.
It's quite revealing. Thank you.
I do want your reaction to, if I were to tell you that I disagree with your point that we're here today, and maybe I misunderstood it too, that we're here today under the premise that CO2 is a bad thing. I don't feel like that is my premise and what I'm trying to accomplish here. I am looking at an application that came in, and we have a statutory duty to make a decision on it based on North Dakota laws and rules, not because I think any of us are on some mission about CO2. Would you disagree with me on that, or?
I wouldn't, yes, I do disagree with you, because we're talking about the welfare of the people of North Dakota. And this has tremendous ability to be bad for our welfare. When you look at how many cubic feet a 20-mile section, that's what it's based on. I don't know if I communicated all that the 390 million cubic feet of pure CO2 is coming from a 24-inch line, 20 miles long. That is just too much of a very heavy anoxic gas to have in the environment. It's not going to be in this giant tank that I described, obviously, but it is going to come out and it's going to be on the ground, and a certain percentage of it is going to move. Now, where that break in that line occurs, as we've seen in Sartosha. We've seen it recently in, was it Sulphur, Louisiana? Actually, in answering your question, one of the things, there's an article I was reading on it. It's written in the new journalism style, talks about this lady and her cats, and her cats didn't come back. Well, I wonder, the reasons her cats didn't come back is because this is a heavy gas. It is toxic at those levels of 8%, 10%. Where are cats? They're under your feet. They're low. So the gas that may be on the ground that kills these cats wherever they went to may not affect you simply because you're 5 feet taller.
Thank you for being here.
Okay.
Commissioner Haugen-Hoffert?
I have no questions, but thank you so much for your testimony.
Mr. Dawson?
No questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Who would like to go next? I'll have you start by stating your full name and spelling your last name for the record.
My name is David Alton Humans. My last name is Yankee Oscar Uniform Mike Alpha November Sierra. That's YOUMANS to all civilians. Okay, I live.
Hang on, I gotta swear you in first.
Okay.
Were you here when I went through the penalties for perjury?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you understand what perjury is?
Yes, Your Honor.
And being advised of the potential penalties for perjury, do you promise to tell the truth in this case today?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
I'm glad that you all came out here and made the long trip from Bismarck and all to little city of Linton, in Emmons County. Glad you can all make it. But the reason why we're even here today is because of AOC and the squad and this new Green Deal. That's the only reason why we're here. The AOC and the squad is probably rolling over laughing right now, knowing that we North Dakotans who are supposed to be conservative and Republican, rhinos, our AOC's got us hopping around. Oh, climate change, CO2. Yeah, right. If it's CO2 so bad, why don't they put a muzzle on everybody and put a cork on everybody's butt? I mean, it's crazy. It's nuts. And I know you're doing your job and all. When this first started, you said we couldn't clap or cheer or have fun. But I know that's decorum and all, but there's people in the back row sleeping. I mean, people here would love to cheer, clap, have fun. You take all the fun out of this. That's why even go to it, But, I know you're doing your job and all. And also, as far as this perjury, what do you mean perjury? You mean lying? If I was a Democrat in Washington, D.C. or a Marxist, I could lie all day long and nothing happened to me. But I'm here in North Dakota and I can't, perjure? Lie? Really? It's a two-tier justice, and we all know that. And I think that we're all here today for the wrong reason. I think this pipeline, the CO2 pipeline, should be rerouted across the Great Lakes, all the way across down to New York and New Jersey, and all the way to Washington, D.C., and it shouldn't have CO2, it have raw sewage from North Dakota, raw sewage going straight to Washington, D.C. That's all I have to say.
All right. Mr. Glut, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Pelham?
I don't, thank you.
Mr. Broughton?
Your Honor.
Mr. Jordy?
I have a question. Sir, thanks for being here. What do you think about the fact that the Republican governor of North Dakota is the main cheerleader of this project?
You don't want me to ask me that question. Rhino comes to mind, and I don't think he should be Trump's vice president pick because he couldn't last 1 second in Trump's shoes. Trump's a big man. I don't think any one of us could last 1 second in Trump's shoes. He gets persecuted. He gets mud thrown at him. he's a strong man, very strong man. And I don't think that Doug Burgum even can hold a candle to Donald Trump. He's not the right man to be vice president, that's for sure.
Nothing further.
Commissioner Chrisman?
Just one, as I asked someone else earlier, I'm just wanting to clarify, did you have any land along the route?
Oh, I live 5 houses from here.
Thank you thanks for joining us today.
Okay,
Hang on, Commissioner Haugen Hoffert.
Thank you for your testimony. I have no questions.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Dawson?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, now you can leave. Thank you. Morning, I'll have you start by stating your full name and spelling your last name for the record.
Robert J. Schaefer, that's SCHAEFER.
Mr. Schaefer, were you in the room this morning when I went through the penalties for perjury?
Yes, I was.
Do you understand what perjury is?
I sure do.
And being advised of the potential penalties for perjury, do you promise to tell the truth in this case today?
Yes, I did.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
On the lighter side, it really won't make a whole lot of difference whether you vote for or against it. If you vote against it, you'd have to think of how do you get rid of forest fires? Because doing with the forest people last year, the fires in California, Montana, Canada, and Australia produced more carbon than the world will produce in all the plants for the rest of our lifetime. Because that's all trees are, is carbon. They drink in CO2, and they use carbon to make trees, and we use it to build stuff. Those 4 places with fires, and there were 1,000 other fires. So this pipeline is kind of like a straw in the ocean. It makes no difference. It's only the money involved. If you take the 27,000 airplane flights every day, commercial flights in the United States, at 35,000 feet, burning billions of pounds of fuel. Now you've got something different than a little teeny pipeline. Now, it was kind of interesting. Last month, the Chinese did a disbursement test, CO2 pipeline, which you guys won't give us, landowners, a look at it. They did it. It was on the public. You could watch it on your television. They ruptured a pipeline, CO2 pipeline, and it came out like an atomic bomb. It didn't go in the air and disappear. It settled back down on the earth and dispersed for miles. Nobody wants to see that. I tried to get a video of it so you guys could watch that. So the Chinese are playing the same game, trying to figure out, you can't get rid of CO2. Everything here, when you plow the ground, the CO2 is coming out of your soil. Soil is the trap for CO2. As the veterinarian said, I taught the adult farm management program and worked as an instructor in the university, in the engineering. You can't get rid of CO2. It is our life, you know. The only thing is, when you concentrated anything above 2, 3, 4, 5%, you and I don't have to buy beer because we think we're drunk. At 7 or 8, those with a breathing problem will be dead. At 9 or 10, everybody in this room will be dead. They've got it at 100% in that pipe. If you're anywhere close to it, anywhere, and if you want to hide in your basement, the military, I have a son who's a general, commands a division of our troops. He said, along with drones, we're looking at CO2 as a bomb. We can drop it on a city. Everybody hides in the basement, their trenches. What does it do? It kills them all. And we save all the infrastructure. It's not a gas as far as the Geneva Convention goes, but it is a lethal weapon. So when I look at this and I look at the Chinese one, I said, you know, I get excited about this. They want to screw up 3 of my quarters of land. Kitty corner across, I got to be one of their best friends. I don't know if they're still in here. They finally decided that I was so friendly being a Marine sniper in Vietnam, I got to stand at coffins of my 18-year-old buddies that don't get the chance that I have today to address you, to fight for freedom. And they want to take 3 of my quarters, which my sons now have. And they said, can we build a farm there? No, you can't. Within the setbacks, if they kitty corner a section, you no longer can build a home, you no longer can build a feedlot, you can no longer do anything other than farm it. So with that, I thought I'd give you a little lighter look at it, because when the 9/11 accident happened, terrorist attack, planes were grounded for like 10, 12 days. The 27,000 flights did not happen. There was a significant change in the air quality in the United States. This is information you can get from the bureaus. And the fires is God's way of giving us the carbon back. We can fool around with pipelines coming out of ethanol plants that we subsidize. And 3 years from now, 90% of what we produce, ethanol, is bought by California, Washington, Oregon, and they are telling us today they're not buying it in a few years. So I'm not sure what we're going to raise in this, because they were running a 2,000 or a 2-foot pipe through my farm, plus hooking one coming from the other part of the state. So not only that, I'd have a junction in the middle of the farm. With that, I'll let you guys go.
All right, thank you. Mr. Glutt, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Pelham?
Good morning, Mr. Schaefer. Thanks for being here. As far as the proposed route, does it cross your property that you own in Emmons County?
No, I happen to be in McPherson County, just a little
I see.
while across in South Dakota.
Okay, I understand. So you're from South Dakota, you're here testifying?
I live not very far from here in North Dakota. There's a pipeline that would reach my house if it breaks south of Oaks.
I see. But as far as the pipeline route as proposed in North Dakota, you don't own any property in North Dakota, it's just in South Dakota.
I own property in North Dakota. It's not on my property, but it's close enough to be
I see.
a concern of mine.
But in South Dakota, you own
Property it's crossing.
where it's crossing. I see. All right. Thank you for your testimony, sir.
Mr. Broughton, any questions?
No, Your Honor, thank you for your testimony.
Mr. Jordy, any questions?
No, thank you, sir, for being here.
Commissioner Chrisman?
I do not, but thank you for being here and thank you for your service and your son's service.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Haugen Hoffert?
Yeah, but I think Commissioner Crispin took it. I was gonna ask you, what does your hat say?
61 to 65, Uncle Sam let me tour the Far East. As a Marine in a 1st Marine Air Wing unit on an aircraft carrier.
Well, with that, I thank you for your military service.
Thank you.
Mr. Dawson, any questions?
Did you testify before in this matter?
Yes, Wahpeton. I did in Aberdeen for the South Dakota one.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schaefer. Maybe take one more individual before we take our lunch break. Barely, but yes.
Good morning. I won't be too long, I promise. My name is Lynn Schneider and I'm in,
Hang on, I gotta swear you in first.
oh, I'm sorry.
Do you want to spell your last name?
SCHNEIDER.
And Ms. Schneider, were you in the room earlier when I went through the penalties for
ma'am.
perjury? And do you understand what perjury is?
Yes, ma'am.
And being advised of the potential penalties for perjury, do you promise to tell the truth in this case today?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
As I stated, my name is Lynn Schneider. I am a landowner in Logan County. I'm in the northwest quarter of 133. 133 north, 73 west, and 30. My cousin owns the other 3/4 of that property, which is where the pipeline will go across. The pipeline itself will be less than half of a mile from where my house is located on the property. So it's a danger. I just want people to note that I agree with all the information that's been said before, before my testimony, and this, what I'm providing you, is new information. So as I stated, the pipeline will be less than half a mile from my house. It will also go over 2 natural spring feeds, and those spring feeds they give me a stock pond. So I have a 6-acre stock pond, which that water feeds. The fact that the pipeline's not going to be buried more than 4 feet deep is sort of ludicrous, because I think badgers go at least that deep in our land, as we know the big holes that we walk across all the time in our fields. I also have teepee rings in that area, which will be affected. I'm very concerned about the effects on the aquifer, because my water comes from those spring feeds and the aquifers are below that. Any explosion will take out my home. You're talking about, if you look at the photographs that are online from these CO2 explosions, it'll take out my house, the livestock, possibly my family, my nieces and nephews. I mostly wanted to just testify that I'll be personally affected as a landowner close to the pipeline. As I said, everybody else here has pretty much said everything that I would probably have enforced or encouraged them to say, and they have already said. I've not seen it. I've looked online. I've not seen any quantitative analysis of any of the pipeline explosion information. There's a lot of emotion, a lot of qualitative analysis, but I haven't found any 3-way ANOVAs or 2-way ANOVAs. There's nothing to tell me quantitatively what the details really are, what the impact is, other than the veterinarian providing some information that he's been able to find. I've spent 35 years in the military. I just recently retired. I've spent 3 years at Aberdeen Proving Ground, where explosives are so CBRNE, it's chem, bionuclear, radiological, and explosives. And I'm about to go back into that program in July. And I will agree that we are looking at all kinds of things for weapons, including using CO2. So it's considered a weapon of mass destruction in the category at the Pentagon. What I've noted, and I'll stop shortly here, but mostly these CO2 pipeline projects are just capturing taxpayer money. This organization alone, Summit, will get over $10 billion just in tax credits. That doesn't include all the money they'll make for the carbon capture project itself. There's an organization, there's an article called Carbon Capture, billions of federal dollars poured into failures. Summit itself was sued by the Department of Energy recently for a pipeline project that failed in Texas. And lastly, I just want to say, in all the different countries that I've been in, anytime politicians are paid off to make a policy change, or other people they call it donations, but they funnel it through multiple different organizations, so you almost can't trace back where the money has gone. We call it a bribe. So I'll just leave it at that. Not sure what the return on investment is for North Dakota, but I'm sure there's lots of politicians getting money. So.
Okay, hang on. We're going to see if there's any questions. Mr. Glutt, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Pelham?
Thanks for being here.
Lynn.
Still this morning.
Yes.
1 minute, right? I'll be brief. You said you're a landowner in Logan County, and you gave the description. Does the proposed route cross property that you own?
So a section is made of 4 quarters.
Okay.
I'm in the northwest quarter. The pipeline goes across the southwest quarter.
Okay.
So my cousin still owns that property, and of course he's not here because he makes money off of the pipeline. So, but doesn't live there, lives in Mandan, so it's a long ways away.
Okay,
Yes.
I understand. And that was just a clarification I had. I appreciate your testimony, ma'am. I have no other questions.
Mr. Broughton, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Jordy, any questions?
So ma'am, I take it your testimony is that you believe if the PSC were to approve the applications before them, that would produce more than minimal adverse impacts on the welfare of the citizens of North Dakota.
Yes, I believe that it would, based on my professional experience. Over.
And same question, do you believe approval of these applications would produce more than minimal adverse impacts on the cultural resources and the environment of North Dakota?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further.
Commissioner Chrisman?
You said your cousin owns the southwest quarter and makes money, so I presume that means he did it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I see.
It's called cha-ching, you know.
I see on the southeast, near the southeast corner.
I apologize, southeast. No, southwest.
I'm asking a different question.
Okay.
See, near the southeast corner of your northwest quarter, there's a farm there. Is that where you live?
That's where I live, yes. Most of the time, yes.
And that is, what, 15 miles east of Linton about? Am I
approximately
right spot?
Mm-hmm. Okay. But less than half a mile from the pipeline, yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Haugen-Hoffert?
Lynn, thank you for your testimony. I have no questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Dawson?
No questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Schneider.
Thank you.
All right, we are going to take our lunch break. We will reconvene at 1 o'clock, and when we come back, we will finish public testimony.